Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba faces a daunting task as he steers Japan's economy through turbulent waters. The former defense minister has pledged a pragmatic approach against China, one of strategic autonomy.
We will confront China on issues that need to be addressed and strongly demand responsible action. We will engage in dialogue, including to discuss various concerning issues. We will cooperate with them on common challenges so that we can build a constructive and stable relationship with China through efforts from both sides.
For this, he will need to strengthen his ties with South Korea and the ASEAN, something that he proposes to do during the ASEAN meeting in Laos this week. He did hold a conversation with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol soon after taking office, clearly indicating he intends to take forward the rapprochement made during the tenure of his predecessor Kishida. One of the most pressing challenges is the aging population. With one of the oldest populations in the world, Japan is grappling with a shrinking workforce and rising healthcare and pension costs. This demographic shift poses a significant threat to the country's economic stability. Thousands of people were forcibly sterilized between 1948 and 1996 under a now defunct law. The declining number of births exacerbates the aging population problem, leading to economic stagnation. The government is under pressure to implement policies that encourage higher birth rates and support families. Inflation is another critical concern. Balancing inflation while ensuring economic growth is a delicate act that Prime Minister Ishiba must master. The challenge lies in stimulating the economy without triggering runaway inflation, which could erode the purchasing power of Japanese citizens.
We would need to support people suffering from rising costs right now until a positive growth cycle with wage increases outpacing inflation and driving capital expenditures is established.
Japan's public debt is among the highest in the world, posing a significant challenge for fiscal policy. Managing this debt while funding essential services and infrastructure projects requires careful planning and strategic decision-making. The global economic uncertainty adds another layer of complexity. External factors such as global trade tensions and economic slowdowns in major economies can impact Japan's export-driven economy. Prime Minister Ishiba must navigate these uncertainties to safeguard Japan's economic interests. The Economic Brief, DD India. And Dr. Charan Singh is still with us. Dr. Charan Singh, how best can Japan address the concerns of an aging population? Will immigration help?
First of all, I must mention that Japan is passing through very, very interesting times. After 3 decades of very bad time, they have had some high inflation, and now they want to control it. Because inflation and those problems are coming up, and the biggest problem they face is labor shortage, the point that you are mentioning, that shrinking population and then role of immigration. So because of the labor shortage, there has also been other factors which have led to bankruptcies in their corporate sector. So what is Japan doing? After a long time, since 2007, they've come out of the negative interest rate. They have raised their interest rate from minus 0.1 to a range of plus 0.1, which I think is very, very positive and something important. Now, you mentioned that the immigration issue, you would agree that the population of Japan is aging very, very fast. 30% of the population is above 65 years. About 10% of the population is above 80 years. So you can imagine how fast the aging is taking place. Obviously, that is reflecting in the economy, and that is why I mentioned that labor shortage and some corporate bankruptcies are impacting the growth in Japan. Right. Certainly, immigration can help in a very big way, and I think we will have to go in for it. Of course, Japan has introduced many policies to improve the birth rate in Japan is amongst the lowest, 1.3. You know, the replacement birth rate is 2.1. So it's very, very lowest. Now, they are giving lots of incentives for improving the birth rate and the family size to increase. For example, they're saying if you have a third child and education of the third child would be free, I think 30,000 yen would be given. So many such things are being done, but those show up 15 to 18 years later.
Sure.
So they do not happen immediately. only
Right.
immigration. So
Dr.
to have
Charan Singh, if we look beyond now also at the stagnant growth, uh, one would have thought that, the investments abroad were helping to increase the revenues to their companies. But do you see, Japanese and South Korean investments increasing perhaps in ASEAN, also in India?
Yes, absolutely. If you look at the Asian countries, the composition of the Asian countries, there's Indonesia, Laos, Singapore, Philippines, Myanmar, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam. So in the Asian countries, there's lots of infrastructure development which is taking place, and and Japan and Korea can play a very big role in it, and it can become a manufacturing hub. They can in the Asian countries, so that can help in a very big way. But they also have trade agreements, and those trade agreements can play a role. Free trade agreements are there, and the Asian Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement is there, and the Asian Korea Free Trade Area, those are there. So there are lots of advantages that Japanese and the, as you mentioned, of course, if within the country there are problems of labor shortage and migration is being looked at, and there's an expectation of 1 million people required for per year for immigration is a large number. If they're
Yes.
not able to attract that, then obviously the alternative route is the Asian investment. Please remember, in India, the Japanese cooperation has been very useful. Maruti Suzuki for a very long time,
Right.
and then we also have the Toyota. So
Absolutely.
the Japanese are working on that Asian countries in a very big way, and they look at it from the potential of course, they're giving government incentives, there are geopolitical considerations for that,
Yes.
certain big role. As far as India is concerned, again, I was just in the Kautilya economic conclave, which you mentioned, where the FM spoke, and she spoke very effectively. But there were people from Japan there who were exploring India further on and saying, where all do we need to invest and what all do we need to invest? So Japan has
Right.
also been looking into India for last 2, 3 years in a bigger way than what Maruti Suzuki or Toyota is. So, and you
So,
know the
indeed.
fast speed train which
Indeed.
we are bringing.
So obviously people are looking at India very optimistically. But is there also a monetary policy solution, since you're an expert there in monetary policy, to a stagnating economy? I mean, Japan is clearly a case study here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that the Japanese are already looking into it, and they are trying to uh, look into the monetary policy aspects. So as I mentioned, the first thing they did is they changed from the negative interest rates, they have come into the positive interest rate zone. I think that is something, a very big development, and that has happened after 2007. And Japan has also been stagnating for nearly 3 decades. And now, because of one of the reasons is the tourism that really peaked in 2023 after they opened up their gates and open borders. So there has been a surge in tourism. That's a very big deal which has happened. They're also tightening credit after 17 years. So I think they're sort of rationing, and because of the corporate bankruptcies that have happened, they're
Okay.
doing that. They're also halting quantitative easing to a great extent. That shows that the Japanese
Right.
economy, especially after the Shanto agreement, where the wages would increase by 5.17%. So there'll be demand within the country. They are now trying to control it. So I see that the growth, of course, is going to go down, expected by 0.29,
Okay.
expected to be 0.9%, which is stagnating. The monetary policy is playing its role in stabilizing. In the peak idea, the idea is that the inflation will stay within the band of 2%.
Okay.
So monetary policy is playing a big role, but I think what is there to celebrate is that the fiscal policy and their primary fiscal deficit is 6.5, so very high.
All right.
You mentioned debt to GDP ratio is very high. The key thing is that the
Yes.
fiscal policy has played a very good role in reviving the Japanese economy and
All
taking
right.
it out of the abyss which it suffered for 3 decades.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, Dr. Charan Singh, for enlightening us on the Japanese economy and how it can come out of stagnation.
Thanks so much, sir.